What's up, folks? Andrew from ReplayWorks, and welcome back to another deck profile. It's been a while since I've done this. Last time I did was the blue-red deck, and after I handed over that deck, I needed something new to play this format. And what I decided to play was the white-red deck. Now, before I wasn't playing this build, I was playing the build with Kshatriya, Sinanju, and Quebly as the top end, and it was okay. I felt like it had a lot of issues going against Wing. And then when I saw the Justice Blockers deck, I decided to give it a shot, since we're in the season where it's like I'm not playing any regionals, I'm just gonna be playing locals, so I might as well experiment with the deck that seems very interesting to me, especially after I covered it in the most recent replay review. So wanted to give that a shot for the week, and it is a fantastic deck. And I've played against quite a few different matchups. Blue-purple, red-blue, green-white wing. So I do feel confident in being able to talk about the deck a lot more detail than I did in the replay review when I was just speculating based on just what the cards I see, right? So this deck, for the most part, is like 95% the same as the Justice Blockers that was featured on I think it was like last week's Eagle's Nest. That should be like the first week of December or the last week of November. And the only changes here, and I'll just briefly touch on it, is the 2 naval bombardments. And that's a quite different reason why I decided to play it. That's more of a meta call based on my local area. So let's just run through some of the cards that I don't have to talk about. We have Alfred, we have Rick Diaz, we have Overflowing. Those are I would say the staple white blocker package along with the striker pack, right? I would say that if you're playing against any deck that plays white as blockers, you're going to see these 14 cards. Maybe you'll see a Zaward or 2, and maybe you'll see a third Rick Diaz, or the 3 Rick Diaz into 4, or a third striker pack, maybe, right? So those are no shit Sherlock, they're going to be in the deck type things, right? Okay. Next we have the cards that kind of make this deck work, which is the Aegis Gundam and Ailstrike, along with the respective pilots, Sinanju and Justice, right? So, real quick, the Aegis Gundam does work fantastically against decks, well, I think almost anything in this meta, because now we are leaning towards such high cost units that 5 cost cards and being in the field is pretty common, right? And Aegis Gundam being able to link with Athrun whenever you need to use it can deal the extra 3 damage, and then your opponent has to deal with it. It's a 5/5 on its own, and what I know is that most cards in the game, they have 5 HP on them, right? Even when linked, because most of the good links only give 1 HP, right? That's why there's so few cards that give plus 2 HP in the links. Now what this means is that, 1, they're going to have to trade into Aegis Gundam almost cleanly to try to get rid of it on the field. If they let it keep on the field, it's going to be able to start pinging damage very easily. And what I've seen, so let's use Ailstrike, right? Good old Ailstrike. Commonly, you see Ailstrike get popped down if they do the link with Kira. Let's say they free swing into something, right? How much HP does Ailstrike have with the Kira link? 5. Okay, cool. Now, say for example, they do that turn 5, your turn 6, right? Your turn 6, you have Sinanju, you don't really want to use it, but you have the Aegis Gundam link. You link the Aegis Gundam with Athrun, you swing at something that's not the Ailstrike that swung, thus allowing you to deal 3 damage to Ailstrike. Now it has 2 HP. Now, since it's turn 6, used up only 4 resources, you can close combat it or battle of aces it, the card to death. Now, that's just an easy example. There's other cases where they swung with a Link Kshatriya. I block with Luberith or Rick Diaz, whichever one took damage, and then now they're damaged. I can now swing using Aegis Gundam with a link to anything on the field, and then just by incidental get rid of the Kshatriya, right? That's the fairly common type scenarios, right? Other more benefiting scenarios would be that if they just hard play a card like Ailstrike, right? They just hard play it, they don't link it, they pass. All I gotta do is just put 1 damage on it, right? So I can try to bait it out with an easy block, just to make it kind of like a quote unquote one for one trade. since this will be able to do the 3. Right? So the Aegis Gundam does come in handy more often than you think. If you are playing against a rush matchup, you just chuck this card with Overflowing. Let's be honest. If you're playing against blue-purple, you can just get rid of it. You don't... It has such little use in that matchup. You rather just hold out to turn 7 and get the Justice on the field with the Link, so you can proceed to win out the game from there, right? So that's why I see, depending on the matchup, Aegis Gundam is almost an instant like keep when you need it, like when you have it in your hand, you need to discard for Overflowing, or it's an instant discard. If you know the matchup, you don't need it, so you don't have to use up time to think about what to keep or what not, because you just get rid of it, right? So I like Aegis Gundam in that sense, where there's a lot of versatility in this meta. Again, because we are in a sit there till turn 4, turn 5, then you can play the big guys out type meta, right? It's sadly unavoidable, right? All right, L-Strike, he's here as the big blocker. More importantly, he has a very good generic pair ability. And pairing with anyone here is great because you pair him with the off pairs, it gives him 6 HP, which is very important, especially with full frontal when he becomes a 6/6. But even a 5/6 is very strong in the sense that you can block a 5/5 and then still have 1 HP left over. The Kira obviously is the most important part of this aspect, where you get the free swing on something. Doing this against, like, if they go turn 4, Gundam Amuro, being able to counter that with L-Strike and Kira, bounce something else that they played, swing onto Gundam cleanly, you have 2 HP left, is incredibly strong. So like L-Strike still has a place in this deck, and it makes sense, right? Moving along, Sinanju. So I like the Sinanju for 2 reasons. One, he fits the curve incredibly well. What I mean by this is that we have, if you look at the units, right? We have level 3s, blockers. We have a level 4 that you don't really play on level 4. You just play 2 more blockers, honestly. You have a level 5, a 6, and a 7, right? So you are able to do, if the situation needs it, consecutive links each turn, right? So you do have a nice curve that you're not sitting there as a lame duck period. You're able to put down a threat on the board. And Sinanju is a massive threat because in addition to having to deal with all these stupid blockers, you put down Sinanju, and even if you don't have the full frontal link, they have to somehow deal with it, right? And Sinanju's well statted that he is a 5/4, so yes, he is vulnerable to Amuro, but he does trade with the Gundam, because Gundam only has 5 HP. So that's a 2-for-1 trade for you, just put down Sinanju and pass, right? So that's just a scenario where it works out in your favor. Other scenarios is they can't touch it while it's up for some reason, which means that on your next turn you can then start pinging the board. It's very easy to just do a chump block with the Rick Diaz or Lubrit and put someone within kill range of 2 HP, right? And Sinanju breaking a shield, breaking a base, allows you to get that free kill off. And more importantly, because we are playing Battle of Aces, Sinanju also helps with that, where let's say they have 5 HP. Sinanju can deal 2 damage incidentally to something. You can then use Battle of Aces to just get out the field, right? Or close combat if they have 4, right? So that it does have that flexibility and that option. And now that's without even pairing with full frontal. When you pair it with full frontal, it's an absolute menace. Why? It has 7 attack and 6 HP. Now, off the top of your head, what cards survive swinging in this and coming out on top of the trade? The answer is it's a Wing 0 with Hero specifically, right? That's the only link off the top of my head that I can think that can just eat it and then still live. Now, anything else, they have to go 2 for 2 essentially. They have to use the link. They have to go into it. Hitting 6 attack can be tough to try to go for that trade. I think actually Death Sight's probably the best thing, but I have a whole spiel about Death Sight in a second and against the Wing deck after I finish the card by card. So stay tuned for that. I swear I'll wrap up the card by card in 4 minutes, 5 minutes. But Sinanju being a 7/6 is a great stat line where it's really hard for them to deal with it. especially when they've already had to deal with all these dinky blockers in the field, and you've been trading efficiently. Especially when you have cards like, oh, okay, I can block with Rick Diaz or Luberate. Then I can use Close Combat or Battle of Aces to finish it off on the turn 4 because I'm not really playing anything on turn 4, right? So they're using up stuff just to get rid of Sinanju. That's great. We don't care. Why don't we care? Because turn 7 is the Justice turn. Justice on its own is a 5/5, gets the 2/2 Phantom 00 token or 00 token. Now, that's a 2/2 blocker, fine, whatever. The 5/5 body is fantastic. More fantastic is that when he's linked with Athrun, he's a 6/7. 6/7, similar to 7/6, is an incredibly hard stat line to deal with because, as we know, most of the HP in the game curves out around 5, right? And then most of the AP curves around 6. So Justice being a way to circumvent all of that means that he's going to be there. He's going to be able to trade very well into many things, right? Just for example, right? Ailstrike versus Justice, both of them are linked. You know, Justice wins on the attack. If Ailstrike attacks into Justice, Justice has what, 6 attacks, goes down to 4, right? So Ailstrike's at 1. But remember, we still have the O Phantom, right? So they have to give -2 to the Phantom O to make it 0 attacks so you don't block with it, or they have to give the -2 to Justice, and then that means you can just block with the Phantom, right? So that flexibility on the field, having that little token blocker is fantastic. Also, I know I said this play a lot in replay reviews, but having a linked Justice, then yeeting its token off that same turn, whether or not they kill it, then playing the next turn playing another Justice, and then using the linked Justice to give the other Justice the ability, like the other token, the ability to attack, is such a crazy like tempo play because then your opponent has so much crap to deal with at turn 7 or turn 8 in the game. So yeah, Justice, fantastic card. It makes people groan, and if the unit isn't making your opponent groan, it's not a good card. Or as one person at my locals the other day put it, if someone hasn't complained about the units in your deck, then it's not a good unit. So from here, let's go along with Vesalius and Rellua. Rellua deals the extra ping damage, so you can do a little bit of, if you want to mitigate the field and have some blockers, you can help that trade efficiently. You can combo it with, like, for example, if you do the Aegis, you do the 3 to Ailstrike, you have the 1 left over, Rellua gets rid of it, no biggie, right? Then from there, it works with Sinanju. You can clear 3s pretty well, like Rezels, or other Rick Diaz's, I guess. So the extra 1 it comes in handy more often than not. The Vesalius, honestly, it's just there to either pump up the Phantom O to 3 attack, or just make Aegis Gundam 5 attack without having to have a link or a pilot on him. That's really the only cases I've had. The other niche case is that you can pump Sinanju to 6 to break the 06 bases, or the Justice, same thing. So those are like kind of the situations I've seen it as. It's fairly useful when you need to. The bases to me are just more, I treat them more like action cards where they'll do a utility thing. I don't expect my opponent to get rid of, like to let it live on the field. So I feel like whenever I play it, it has to do that thing. It has to be impactful that turn, right? It has to help swing momentum. All right. Pilot ratios, we have 4-3-3, just because we definitely want to draw Athrun because we have 7 of his links. The rest 3-3 with playing 4 of the links is a pretty good ratio. I do like it. I tend to see double Kira more often than I see double full frontal, weirdly enough, anecdotally. For the rest of the action cards, we have, command cards, Jesus. The rest of the command cards, we have 3 close combat. That is a slight change. I'm not playing 4. I did want to have the extra room to fit the naval bombardment in. 2 battle bases. Both these have interchangeably been very useful. I kind of just hold it whenever I just want to see what my opponent does, and if I want to ping at the end of the turn or just get rid of it on action step when they declare an attack, fantastic. 2 striker packs. I don't like playing 3. Somehow I will always draw 2 out of the 3. That's just a me thing. If you feel like playing 3 is great, play 3 by all means, that's just player preference. Naval Bombardment. This card is a meta call. I alluded to this before, but this is just because I do see white-green a lot in my local meta. Also, as a former one-year, well, I guess as a person who has played one-year Rush, the amount of times you see Amuro come down, rest one of your blockers, and then they proceed to punch it for the free kill is infuriating, because I've done it so many times as well. So Naval Bombardment to me works out in two ways. One, if they ever decide to do a cheeky play like that, it does become a 2-for-2 trade, which is fine because they lose their Gundam and I lose a dinky blocker and this card that's oddly specific. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that 2-for-2 because on their turn they lost a unit. So that means on my turn I can reestablish board with blockers. I can put down another guy safely, etc. The other thing is, and this hasn't happened, but this is my thesis statement to put it in. Against Shenlong, I tried to bait them, or I want to try to bait them. When I have two blockers on the field, I'll swing with like Rick Diaz and Drake EX base, or swing with Lubert, whatever. And then they go Shenlong, they link. That's their entire turn. If they went second, they use up their EX resource, which is great for us. We want them to do that early. And if they did that, they're going to swing on the rested unit because it's 3 AP, which means that they'll get a free kill and they get a free squish. The squish is unavoidable, not a big deal. But then Naval Bombardment comes in and ruins that plan, because then it kind of becomes like a 3-for-2 trade on my end. But I got them to use up their EX resource. They had to repeat turn 5, right? Which means that most likely their turn 5 play was the Wu Fei with Shenlong. If they're not playing Ailstrike Kira, most decks wouldn't. They'd be playing one or the other. To me, I feel that's good because either way, even if let's say I had like 2 Luberts on the field or whatever, then doing the Naval Bombardment to do that 3-for-2 gets rid of an annoying headache, gets rid of their EX resource because I want them to use it up so they can go a turn behind. And that's like, to me, it hasn't happened because I must have gotten lucky. They just kind of played Shenlong on its own, and then Aegis Gundam kind of just ate it. So it is one of those things where I really did avoid the worst case scenario where I didn't have this. But again, in the game of who has better hand, this is just here just for like, just in case I really need to do something to get that out, right? Now, the other thing is that because it gives 3 AP to any blocker, I can give the Phantom token, +3. It's just a nice surprise. And realistically, if I did use a Phantom to trade up for like a Gundam or something, that'd be amazing. So that I just like keeping there. Naturally, if I'm in a rush meta, I would switch them out. I would play something like all range attack, or maybe go back to the 4th close combat or a 3rd battle bases, right? So these are like the flex spots for me, for sure. I'm not too tight about it. I just had a thesis that I wanted to use because it's funny. It came up like, I used it maybe twice this past week, which is fine. Out of 2 locals, it saw some good use. All right, so now this deck is really strong against the white-green matchup. And the reason why is because if people are not playing Death Scythe, and only one person I know playing white-green is playing Death Scythe, and to me he's the best white-green player I've played against. If they're not playing the Death Scythe, that's a huge disadvantage because Death Scythe does eat the board a little bit. It's a little bit hard to play around Death Scythe just because of the first strike. But when they're not playing Death Scythe, it's now in a game of we're going to sit here and stare at each other until we're ready to play the big dogs. Now, for me, because I have the free pings, I can deal with a damaged Wing Gundam pretty cleanly, right? They can attack Rick Diaz, we can take 3, right? They have 4 HP left. 4 HP is a nice threshold for me to use any of my burn or with the Sinanju just to get it off the field. Right? It ends up still being either 2-for-2, or if I can set it up really well, use Aegis Gundam to its advantage, right? Now, to me, as a former one-year war player, The worst is when they play the wing 0 turn, right? Because that's when everything dies. You have to restart from 0. And what I've seen is that on my turn, if let's just say I have the Justice Link, I do the Justice Link on turn 7, on curve. Justice Link, get the token, get whatever. Justice can now proceed to swing at shield or base or something that I know probably won't die to the wing 0 turn. All right. And then the Phantom, the token can also just go in, get a chip damage, right? Their turn 8, they use up their entire turn 8 for wing 0. Now, if I played the matchup correctly, I should not have these guys on the field. This guy should never be on the field, to be honest. He's got to do one job, and that's the surprise attack. I shouldn't have these guys on the field. I shouldn't have him on the field. Now, when that happens, I have a board of guys that are not affected by wing 0, which takes away their biggest weapon, because that big weapon that's supposed to be the momentum shift actually hurts them on that turn, because they cannot play anything else, and they can't link unless they're on turn 9. And if they're turn 9 and they link and they try to go after my Justice Gundam that swung, I probably swung them twice already. You know, and it became one of those things where I saw that consecutive turns of Justice Gundam, Sinanju, Justice Gundam really does put a strain on their resources, because they cannot clear as efficiently at that point in the game. They don't have a way to get extra kills. They're trying to trade as efficiently as possible, but it ends up being 2 for 2. Or if I'm able to get lucky off a burst, then it ends up being 2 for 1 in my favor, right? So I feel like that matchup, it really, like playing Justice, it really swings it where they have to make a bad decision, and they still have to deal with Justice just chipping away at their life, and eventually you can do the Justice Athrun for, swing for game, two attacks play, right? Or like I said, you can have Sinanju in the field and start pinging the rest of the field. So when one Sinanju swings, it pings, deals 2 damage to wing 0. Wing 0 is a 5/5 now. If Sinanju has full frontal, you can't. It's not a 1-for-1 trade anymore. It really does put him in a really bad situation. So I am really shocked at how much I like this deck. I used to just Unga Bunga. I'm also really surprised that this deck could have existed in set 1. This would have just becomes warts. So I feel like this deck felt right when I was playing it. And I think it's a great feeling when you find a deck that feels right when you play it, and you're like, okay, well, I know the timing for everything here. I don't feel like I'm coming up with plays on the fly. It's like, okay, well, there's a certain pathway of how I'm going to win, and I know what's in my deck. I know what it's there for. To me, Justice felt like that deck that instead of me trying to dig for the top decks, I just kind of played to whatever outs I had. More often than not, it just ended up being, did I draw 2 Justices in my opening hand? And did I eventually get to play them? If the answer is yes, then I'm like, yeah, this worked out very well. Or even if I don't, right? For me, a good opening hand is, do I see a blocker? Do I see L Strike? That's it. Everything else in between I can draw into. Everything else in between these two, that doesn't matter which one, but L Strike plus L blocker, a level 3 blocker, does help slow the game down to the point when I don't have to have a link. I can throw a full frontal into him and bounce something, and that can ruin a momentum on their end, right? And then that from there means that I would have had 5 turns to be able to get the rest of the pieces needed to win. And slowing the game down also means that close combat, Battle of Aces, Relua, all these cards help to deal with extra ping damage. That way I'm not overwhelmed against a rush deck. And the rush deck matchup, because they play 2/2s, as soon as you get to Sinanju, I think the game kind of means that, like, if you stick a Sinanju against a blue-purple deck, I think the game's over, because it's almost impossible for them to deal with Sinanju. And if you stalled out long enough where you at least have like 1 or 2 shields left, they are running on fumes at this point. So it means that unless they have a magical like triple link somehow, it's not not possible for them to get out of this stupid board, right? So that's my whole spiel. I really like this deck. I am upset with myself that I couldn't play this before, that I didn't want to play this before because, ooh, blocker's bad. But, you know, for the meta that we are in, the slow-ass meta that we are in, this deck felt right with me. And I think that's the most important takeaway that I want to communicate in this video. Am I going to play this at locals? Most likely, because set 3 is on the horizon after the new year, so I don't really need to switch up my deck too often. Again, just maybe messing with the commands. So that's just something that, you know, I'll just do with depending on which locals I go to. And I feel great with this deck. I felt like there's so many options you could do. There's so many cool trick plays, and you know, I'm curious. Anyone who's listened to this long, if you played this deck or played against it, you know, let me know your thoughts about what you think the deck is. What do you think is missing? What kind of ratios do you prefer? Because again, player preference and just meta preference, right? It depends on what you're seeing. Those are what matter in this matchup and in this deck building. So, with that being said, thank you for watching. If you stuck to the end, please like and subscribe. I do appreciate it because we are getting some good momentum on the channel. We crossed 400, so I'm really trying to push to go to the next 100 milestone. I love this game so much. I love the community in New York. It's been great, and I want to keep making content, and you know, I want the content to be enjoyed as well. So, that being said, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.